All right, let's get started. So again, my name is Nate Curran. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Tag and eBacon, and along with Alex Kramer, our VP of Product Development, we're going to talk a little bit about a new product feature that we rolled out maybe a little over a month ago called Quick Pay. It's a new card pay program. Just a couple, again, real quick housekeeping notes. If you could keep your microphones on mute, that would be great kind of throughout the presentation. If you have any questions, please type them in the question box. We will be answering those throughout the presentation. So with that, we'll kind of talk about our agenda here. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we're pulling together the why we put together the Quick Pay program. We'll talk about what it is, why it's something that you may want to offer to your employees. We'll go kind of through a quick how-to, and again, we're going to be answering questions all along the way. So with that, I'd like to bring Alex in, and Alex, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, everyone, for coming today.
Great. So let's kind of jump right into it. So, Alex, I know you've done a ton of research on this, and you're kind of one of the main drivers of bringing in this this particular product feature. What was kind of your reasoning, and how were you kind of really getting involved and interested in bringing Quick Pay?
Yeah. So Quick Pay is a response to the start of a new trend in how money's starting to move between people. The traditional ways that you can move money right now are ACH or wires. There are some companies like Zelle that are now allowing you to move money pretty instantaneously. Could take about an hour to move money. But these companies are still kind of more private partnerships between banks. And right now, the Fed is actually working on a new instant payment system, which last year they said it was going to be 2023. Now they're saying it's going to be 2024. But this new instant payment system is going to allow for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, money transfer between people. And this is a pretty big deal because today, anyone who runs a business or has to deal with money knows that if you need to get money between people, it actually takes quite a lot of time. It can take up to a couple days for a decent sized payment, or it can be very expensive via a wire to do it same day. And we've seen in like other countries, China and some countries in Africa, that there's been a huge move towards real-time payments. If you visit China or you visit some of these other countries, you'd actually be surprised to see that most people are just paying using QR codes, and that cash and credit cards have actually started to kind of dip away in favor of these money movement systems. And for vendors, that means that you're instantly moving money and you don't have to wait for any kind of settlement at the end of the night. For employees, though, this makes a huge deal because you end up with a new way to get money to employees. There's no longer a need to wait for kind of a more traditional payday. There's now actually faster ways to get money to people using these same kind of rails that are being developed on these other different platforms.
And do you think, like, I know you and I have had quite a few conversations around this. I mean, do you think the main driver of this is kind of that more and more, especially younger generations that are coming into the workforce, they're coming in more as either independent contractors or gig, joining the gig economy earlier? Do you think that's really kind of one of the drivers of this from a, from a demand side?
Yeah, so there's two sides from demand side that I'm seeing. One is the gig economy is creating a new demand for payments to go quicker. Two quick examples of that. One, Uber recently, actually last year, announced a new thing called Uber Cash. And one thing that they did on Uber Cash was make it so that now if you go on a ride with an Uber driver, that driver gets paid at the end of that ride, and they get paid within a couple minutes. And actually, the partner that we're working with is the partner who actually built that whole platform out for the Uber company. The second thing is, like, other instant payments from a business perspective are being driven by things like Postmates. When you use Postmates, if you pay on Postmates, the company, I think it's Square actually on the back end, is facilitating that payment through an instant pay debit card to the employee who's actually at the site, and then uses that to swipe their card and pay the restaurant for the actual food that they're picking up for you as a person who's buying that food. So these have kind of really driven on like the need to move money quicker through the system, especially through debit cards right now. And then from an employee perspective, there's a lot of like traditional methods out there for employees to get money a little bit quicker. That's not necessarily through their payday. But what we're seeing is that the definitely younger generations who are a little bit more technologically savvy are trying to find ways to do that without having to take a loan out or to kind of do like a payday loan or like a car loan type of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, and I know we're going to get in a little bit later on kind of how this might impact some of our existing clients, kind of this trend. So I'll kind of save that for the back pocket for later. But let's kind of talk a little bit about QuickPay itself and what it is. So can you kind of describe, kind of what the mechanics of it work and how it works?
Yep. So the way that QuickPay works is that your employee will be issued, when your employee signs up for the program, they're actually issued a Visa card. And that Visa card's tied to a RapidPay pay card. On the dashboard for the employee, there's a widget that can actually click on to request their wages early. So employees can take up to 25% of what they've earned up to that point out on the card. And that money comes out within a minute. So instead of having to wait for an ACH or a wire, an employee can go on the site. Let's say they worked 8 hours yesterday. They can take 25% of that money, and they can get that paid within a minute of requesting that money any time of the day. So if it's 2 in the morning, they need a quick $25 for something, they can utilize the system to get $25 out of their pay. All of that money that the employee requests are earned wages. So there's no money that you're lending to the employee. This is not a loan program for the employee. This is money that they've already earned by working. So every single payroll, that amount of money that they can take out of their account or take out of their earned wages gets reset for the next payroll. So generally, like on the first day of the pay period, they might have a lot less than what they had the day before because all that money is going to be put into their actual check. And from a kind of technical perspective, from a payroll perspective, all this kind of just flows through naturally. The RapidPay card and the RapidPay payment that happens on that just ends up being a net pay on the check. So there's no deductions the employee has to do or anything like that. There is a nominal fee that the employee pays, but as employers, there's no fee on your side to use the program.
Very cool. Very cool. So, I think one of the, why would employees really like this? Like, I mean, why is this something that could be a big benefit to, for our clients to offer to their employees?
Yeah, great question. So one of the reasons why you'd want to offer this to your employees is so that they no longer have to worry too much about kind of that emergency bill or that emergency use of money that they might be worried about. There's a lot of different ways that you can get money quickly, but a lot of those require either loans or other methods. A couple anecdotal examples. I was talking to one of our employees last week who uses the program, and they actually had to pay for their tags on their card or their car, and they didn't have the cash on hand to do that. So they just went into the system, they requested the money, they got that money right away, and they paid the bill, so they didn't have to necessarily take a loan out or had to be late on that. We've had other situations where a kid of an employee of ours had to actually have dental work done, and they didn't have the money necessarily to pay for that right away. So they used the card, they literally pulled it up on their phone, requested the money, gave the card to the vendor, and were able to pay for it right there. So there's a lot of ways that this can be utilized to just alleviate that cash worry from employees, and to actually give them kind of a sense of calm that you can get money anytime you need to. As long as you've worked and earned the money, you can get us a percentage of that money to cover any kind of unexpected bill or payments you're gonna have to do. One thing that's very interesting is kind of as we we're doing research for this product, there was a Federal Reserve survey that said right now 40% of American adults can't cover a $400 emergency with their cash savings credit card charge. So there's a lot of financial uncertainty out on the market today, especially with what's happening right now and with all the different bills that could be coming due, that this program actually helps a lot to alleviate with your employees.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because, you know, a lot of the employee demands are really around, right now at least, are really around, you know, how can I avoid, you know, those payday loans. You know, I mean, we have, you know, a ton of people that, you know, live paycheck to paycheck. They're tired of, you know, they're tired of spending on their credit cards, and they're trying, but they still have those kind of in between bills. And I think that's kind of the interesting piece, is that that's kind of the main use case, but that's not necessarily even where the trend is going, right? It's just that more and more employees are also they just are demanding faster access to the money that they've earned.
Correct. Yeah. The demand for, I worked yesterday for 8 hours, why don't I get my money today, is definitely kind of increasing as people get in touch with more instant payment methods, for sure.
Yeah. So, you know, we're kind of going back then to, you know, to our clients then, and why this might be something that they can, you know, be interested in offering. You know, we kind of talked a little bit about, you know, those, you know, providing some flexibility so that, you know, their employees aren't really stressed about, you know, making those bills in between paydays. But what are some of the other benefits, you know, for our clients to offer this?
Yeah, some of the other benefits, one that's not listed on our thing here, is that there are probably some of you today that have to do like advances. Like an employer might come to you and say, hey, I want to take an advance of my paycheck because I have a bill I have to pay and I can't do it, or I can't wait till payday to get the money. And unfortunately, like from what I've heard from some customers, that becomes a manual burden on you as the payroll person actually in payroll processing to maintain that record, to say, okay, I took, you know, I gave a $500 advance, I got to collect that money back. If you're using the Quick Pay program, then there's no accounting that you have to do. It is just, the employee requests the money, and then the system will automatically kind of true everything up and make sure that everything gets paid properly. So there's no more need for kind of employee advances or anything like that. On top of that, it takes away kind of that burden on the employee to be worried about like payday loans. In some states, those loan fees can be extremely high, and they won't have to necessarily worry about, you know, getting hit with the 200-300% interest rate or anything like that that we have seen on the marketplace, and that does cause a lot of stress and financial burden on employees. We have seen that because our program exists, people do not have to use those programs anymore, and it becomes a lot easier on the employee to manage their money.
And I just want to take a break here just to kind of remind everybody that, you know, if you do have questions, please feel free to ask them at any time. We'll make sure to kind of to weave them into the conversation here. But, you know, one of the interesting things that you talked about right there is just how easy this system is, and how, you know, how you and the team have really integrated it into the entire payroll process. Can you kind of go through what that looks like?
Yeah. So there are a couple of the programs out there that do offer instant access, much like this. But unfortunately, they require a lot of back and forth between you and that other third-party vendor. What we've done is we've completely tied it into our time and attendance system and our payroll system. so that as people work or clock in and out of the system, they are automatically earning wages that can be paid out to them. Because of the way we're doing it, it requires no deductions off the paycheck except for the service fee, which reduces a lot of the kind of headache. If you look at some other systems out there, they deal with the kind of advance as a deduction, or because we have it all in our same system, we're dealing with it as a net pay. So it actually makes it a lot easier to maintain and manage. As far as like using it for the employee, there's actually a widget on their dashboard that they can utilize. And that widget on their dashboard will tell them exactly how much money they have available to them to take out. If they haven't yet enrolled in the program, the first thing they end up doing is they go to the widget, they click enroll. They have to go just kind of read through some statements about kind of some legalese background on what's going to happen, and they acknowledge that. Then what happens is you as the employer will get an email saying, Alex wants to enroll in the program, please issue him a card. And if you are enrolled in the program, we'll actually be giving you some cards that you can keep with you. You then go to the employee's profile. There's a place now in the employee's profile where you can give them a card, and you just type a number in. You register that. The employee then takes that card and registers it with RapidPay, who is our third-party vendor, and then that will issue them a new account. Once that's done, then their dashboard widget will now show them how much money they have. At that point, they can transfer up to whatever they've earned so far in the week, about 25% of that. We have some other options available on top of that. There's people who don't use our time and attendance system. We do have a method for that, and we have salary built into it too. So if you have a salary employee who doesn't clock in and out, we can still do a percentage of their salary prorated for the whole week. Once they transfer money, it takes about a minute to get to them, and it's pretty cool on how fast it is, because if you think about payroll, you're giving a loan to the as an employee, you're kind of giving a loan to the company as far as I'm gonna collect my money in 2 weeks. This is a minute, and then the money's right on the card and they can spend it right then. So it's a much quicker, much more dramatic kind of change on that.
So that sign up process, Alex, on average, just kind of, with the, I know that we have a lot of employees here at Tagany Bacon that use this. How long does that sign up process really take?
The sign up process will probably take 2 or 3 minutes for the employee, and then from the employer side, shouldn't take more than 3 or 4 minutes to type the card in. There's a 10-digit card ID on the front of the envelope. You go into Viper, you type that in, and you just got to hand the employee the card. And then the sign up for RapidPay takes probably 5 minutes on the employee side, and then actually requesting money takes about 10 seconds to do on our interface.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So even if a person has kind of that emergency that same day, they could almost sign up, get the card activated, and have money on it that exact same day, even if they've never signed up for it.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, if someone had that, and because the system is kind of going back to this, it is a 24-hour-a-day system. So if an employee had an emergency and they needed the money like right away, because the system does not turn off because it's all day long, you could issue that card to them you could issue that card at 9:30 at night, and then that employee could get paid at 9:45 at night, and then pay that bill as they need to right there.
So let's kind of talk a little bit about the mechanics on the employer side. So like, what does the employer need to do to set it up?
Yeah. So from an employer side, there's 2 things that we have to do to set it up. First off, if you're interested in it, reach out to your customer service rep and they can kind of get you started. Second thing is that as an employer, you get a dashboard that shows you who's using the card and how often you're using the card. Lastly, because this is actually earned wages, this is not money that TAG is fronting to the employee, and for a legal purpose, we cannot be seen to be giving money out and waiting for money coming back from you. So it requires you as the employer to set up a reserve account with us. That reserve account it's just a pool of money that we hold on to that just says when an employee uses money, we're paying it out of that reserve account. That reserve account is something you can control 100% from the dashboard that you get in our system. And that account will true itself up each payroll. So let's say you put $1,000 in there and then 2 employees use 500 of it. The next payroll, $500 will be, it will kind of replenish itself back up to $1,000. And then if you do any kind of GL with us, that accounting will happen for you automatically, so you can kind of see the ins and outs of the program. So from your side, like the main thing to maintain and manage is just how much is there in that account, and just watching to make sure that, you know, did you use too little? Did you use too much? Are there more people using the system? And we can absolutely guide you through that process if you want to come on board. And if you want to test it with a couple employees or a specific department, we can help you kind of figure that out and kind of see how much money you should put in there to potentially cover. We've got a little bit of experience seeing that on average, employees will use between $50 and $100 a week actually with the program. And that's just kind of like an early testing thing.
So when an employee uses that card, is that automatically debited against that reserve account then, Alex? Is that kind of, and that's all taken care of on our side from that standpoint, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, that when that employee uses a card, if they use $100 and you had a $1,000 reserve, the reserve is automatically reduced to $900. And then at the next payroll, it will replenish itself so that you guys have that amount of money in the reserve on that side.
Cool. I have a couple other questions here that have popped up. So one is about commissioned employees that are kind of compensated based on their sales and productivity. How are commissions, like when there's no kind of base or you really don't know what they're going to earn, how does that work with the QuickPay system?
So commissions, so right now, commissions are not something that we're taking into account. We do have one, we have one flag on our system that is called, I think it's called like average wage. And if you turn the average wage on, then what it does is it will actually look back at the last 2 months of paychecks and say, what was the average amount of money that this employee earned on that time? And then we'll utilize that amount of money as an average, and it'll prorate that day by day on the payroll. So if you do have someone who's like fully commissioned and you wanted to use this system, then you can turn on that average thing, and then it will just look back at the last 2 months and then kind of give you a prorated amount. And we try to keep the amount of money that the employee can take to be a very low amount. So they can only take like 25% out. So that even if there's a huge spike, they're not going to necessarily, you know, take too much out that's going to negatively affect their deductions or any other things they have on their paycheck.
Cool. And then this only works with the Rapid Pay card, correct? I mean, but it's also like in conjunction with their standard payroll. So if they already have like ACH or even a physical check, they would still receive kind of that remaining balance on the pay date. Is that correct?
That is correct. So your so the way that it looks like on an actual payroll register with us is the Rapid Pay amount comes out first. So let's say I did $100. What you would see on the register is $100 out on Rapid Pay, and then the remaining amount in whatever their original net pay is. And the reason we did that is so that there's no need to worry about you know, like deductions or anything like that. It just is taking out whatever, or it's just paying out whatever's left in their kind of bucket of net pay at the end of the day.
Awesome. So there's I think it's another kind of real quick question on, you know, how employees kind of use this from the banking standpoint. So I mean, is this primarily like an in and out, or can employees like continue to bank money on that card? You know, is it is it really meant to be kind of like just a transaction-based piece, or is this something that, maybe they could use this as a potential, emergency savings for that card, and they just pull out a certain amount every single pay period?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from the employee's perspective, there's two ways they could utilize it. One is that it is actually a bank account. So if there's any employees who are unbanked, who do not have anything like that, who are taking a check right now, they can use this not only for Rapid Pay, but also just as a normal bank account. We can, if you have more questions about like how that looks like for that employee, we can send you some of the details of just like what it looks like from a normal pay card perspective. If you're not wanting to use it necessarily as your own like bank account, and you don't want to use it necessarily as a savings account, then and you're still really interested in saying like, I want to have this ability to use the cash, the card actually allows you to take money out of an ATM. So you can, let's say that you needed $25 like right now, you could go to the quick pay, you could go to our site, request $25, get paid that on the card, and then go to the ATM and actually use that $25 right now and get that out in cash. Rapid Pay, who's our vendor, actually has other options for employees. Like for example, I think on the card, there's a way to actually get the money out at Walmart and just like go to Walmart and get that out. And then any fees that are associated with like the ATM withdrawal get covered the first time that they take it out after they get their money loaded. So there's a couple ways that they can utilize the card as a normal card. And then the process, the actual card itself lets you ACH that card over to your normal bank account, and that ACH process is free. So if an employee wanted to take $150 out and then they wanted to ACH that to their normal card or their normal account, they can also do that too, without any fees on Rapid Pay side.
That's awesome. So this could potentially, especially for those unbanked employees, this could be just a great way for them to kind of continue to even manage their own money outside of the banking system.
Yeah, it's a great way, and there's no real barriers to entry on this. There's some people who cannot get a bank account because of the barriers to entry, because of credit scores and other things like that. With Rapid Pay's pay card, there's no barriers to entry. Like they will issue that to anyone who's asking for a card, mainly because it's a money in, money out. Like as far as like it's not a credit situation. So anyone who doesn't have a bank account, who can't get a bank account, this is another great option for those employees. And especially if you're trying to move from having employees get physical checks, and if they're getting physical checks because they can't actually get a bank account, just the traditional pay card works wonders. But then adding the quick pay feature to it gives those employees another awesome reason to utilize kind of a more traditional, kind of a more traditional pay card bank account, so that you don't have to do checks anymore.
That's awesome. So do you have time just to kind of quickly kind of show how this could work?
Yeah, I can show you on my wife's account here, so I can kind of see her money get taken away by me. So I'm willing to do that.
Well, I'm glad that. So is this how you're buying lunch then today?
Oh, for sure. Give me 1 second here. All right. Apologize. Can you see my web browser here?
Yeah.
Okay. So these are kind of our normal widgets that everyone sees today. There's a widget here that's called Quick Pay, and since our pay period just ended 2 days ago, Ling has $33.14 available to her. So she can click on the transfer button here, and it says this is what your balance is, and I'm going to transfer $10 of it. Oh, not $100, $10. And tells you the amount of fee it is. The one limitation we have is that you can only do 3 money transfers per day. We haven't had anyone who's run into that we haven't had anyone who's run into that problem. That's just more of a limitation on RapidPay side as far as the amount of the quantity of transactions. But you can do as much money as you want in it. Just can only do 3 per day. You acknowledge it, hit transfer, and there we go. So I don't have the account pulled up, but in a minute, the money will now be on the card, and she'll be able to spend it as she'd like to. So
That's awesome.
that's pretty much it. That's as fast as it is. That's how easy it is to transfer money. And then on the back end, things just kind of go where they need to go to make sure that all the money is accounted for on your employer side.
Awesome. Very cool. So just to kind of come back, so I know that there's a few more things that are kind of future enhancements and things like that that are that you're planning. So if you can kind of go through, what does the future of QuickPay look like?
Yeah. So a couple features that we've got in the works right now, and we're always really interested to see if there's other utilizations we can do for our customers. One is that right now the program only works through RapidPay, the RapidPay card, and that's so that we can kind of move money as fast as we can. 2 things that we're working on right now on that side. One is that we would like to make this available just through normal ACHs, and that won't necessarily be as fast, but it will still allow the employee to get the money within a day or 2 of requesting it. So they won't have to wait 2 weeks necessarily for payroll, but they could still get the money probably the next day, probably the next morning, depending on when they request it. The second thing is that we're working with our vendor to have a direct debit solution, which would allow us to move to any debit card, but we're still kind of in the early stages of that. Lastly, we've recently released a new part of our application that allows for all tips to be paid out daily through this process. So we have a restaurant we're working with in the Valley who has probably about 150 employees who used to get cash tips. And because of COVID, it's not actually really easy to keep cash on hand in the stores anymore. And it's actually getting really complicated to maintain that balance and then maintain the cash to make sure employees get paid the right cash. So now every single day they just upload a file, and then whatever amount they got tipped the day before instantly goes on the card for them to spend. So it functions as cash without having to keep cash on hand and have to deal with, if you're in retail in those industries, there's actually like a change shortage that's been going on because people are not paying in cash or not, they're generally using paperless methods today. So we're always looking for if there's other solutions that you're thinking about, like other ways that employees need to get paid. We're always really interested to hear those to see if there's ways we can utilize this program to kind of alleviate that pain of either having to pay cash out commonly, or if there's just other ways that would be interesting to do, either a daily thing like a tip or something like that.
Very cool. Just a real quick question. So that fee that the employee pays, is that taken out as the withdrawal amount, or is that over and above the withdrawal amount?
That's over and above the withdrawal amount. So when I on that money I just took from my wife, it'd be $10 plus $2.99, and that $2.99 doesn't come out until the paycheck, and that actually does come out as a deduction. So that will just deduct from whatever their rest of their net pay is.
Awesome. Just real quick, so kind of functionality wise, so if one of our clients is not using our tag time and attendance, and it's uploaded, differently, how would they, so like the employees aren't necessarily logging into Viper directly. Do we have a mobile version of this, or is it included in our app where their employees would be able to access this?
Yeah, so 2 sides of that. If they're not necessarily using our time and attendance system, then they can use what we call kind of the average method. And the average method will actually look at the last 2 months of paychecks and then average out what the employee gets paid, and then we'll prorate that throughout a payroll. And that way, if you've got someone who's usually getting paid, let's say they're a full-time employee, they're hourly, they're generally getting paid 30 hours, they're doing 30 hours a week, then the system will kind of take that into account and say, okay, this is the amount of money we're going to set aside day by day, and allow you to actually bank that a little bit and utilize that money. It's not, it works. It's not necessarily ideal, because you definitely want to make sure that they're actually like using money they earned. But it is a good solution for if you're using another time and attendance system, or if you don't necessarily have them using our time and attendance system. The actual, from a functionality perspective, the transfer process is not inside of our application or our mobile app yet, but it will be probably within Q1 of next year. We'll have that on the application itself. But you can still go onto the mobile web, just viper.tagpay.com, and still request money from your phone at any time.
Awesome. So I think that's all that we had from a presentation standpoint. If there's any other questions, please feel free to post them, and we can get to them right now. But you know, I think the big thing, just to kind of wrap this up, is that, you know, this is a payment method that is going to become more and more popular as younger generations continue to enter into the workforce. These are different things that will help you kind of differentiate from some of your other competitors in the marketplace, as well as just, you know, helping your employees go through and reducing some of the stress of, you know, managing money issues and those types of things. This is just another option that you can use to help out your employees. But, you know, I think one of the big things that we are really trying to do here at TAG and eBacon is, you know, constantly look at different ways that we can be leaders, you know, in the industry, looking at new technologies, looking at new ways to handle old features. You know, daily pay is not necessarily a new thing, but the way that we're implementing it, there's very, very few companies really in the country that are doing this way. Correct, Alex? I mean, I don't know of anybody that's really doing it the way that we are.
Yeah, the other companies out there that have a similar product are relying on you to upload a spreadsheet of time every day, or relying on an integration, and then relying on you to get that information back into payroll via a deduction or another import. So we're really probably one of the only companies, from what I've heard, that has it tied in directly into our platform for ease of use, and also for just making life easier.
That's awesome. Just as another thing, you know, hopefully everybody has received some invitations, but you know, we're really excited about another kind of a technology update to, you know, an existing feature, and that's really the 401k. And so we have another webinar scheduled next week at the same time that will go through some of our new updates to the 401k. That it makes it really slick. I mean, if you've been with multiple 401ks, you kind of know how clunky it can be, and Alex and his team have really done an amazing job on that, and that's going to be the topic for next week. We're going to be doing a lot more of these types of webinars going forward, probably not necessarily on a weekly basis, but at least on a monthly basis, to talk about what we're doing as a company, keep you informed. Some of it will be product specific. A lot more of it will be kind of what's going on in the industry. What do we see when we're out talking to, you know, to our clients and different prospects, and how can we give you the insights to be more successful? So we really appreciate your time today. Alex, thank you so much for taking some time out and spending it with us. And we really look forward to talking to everybody going forward.